It's Chris from Good Roads, and it has been a very big week for me. First of all, the channel reached 15,000 subscribers. What? Thank you all so much. That is a huge number, and it's a pretty big threshold for a channel here on YouTube. I'm so glad y'all like my projects and my content, and I'm so glad that there's so many people out there who are interested in building boards. And whether you're just watching for the projects or you're actually out there making your own gear, I appreciate that you are choosing to spend some time with me here on the channel. I'm very grateful that you're spending your time with me. And I've got a ton of awesome projects in the works that I can't wait to share with you guys. And like I say at the end of the videos, I really do love having you along for the ride. So thanks so much for watching. It means more than you can know. Now, speaking of building boards, I've spent the last few years showing you guys how to make your own gear, designing and producing tools, making open source parts available, but I haven't actually released any board components myself. Well, that ends today. I'm proud to announce, with the happy coincidence of also having hit 15K on the channel, the first ever set of Good Roads riding gear, the Slice series of wedges for my beloved mountain boards. Now, if you've been with the channel for a while, you know that I've been messing around with wedged risers for mountain boards since I built this prototype board right here. And I really do love these little pieces of rubber, but I feel like I've got to start by answering an important question. Because you might be wondering, wedges, so what? What's the big deal? Who cares? And that is honestly a kind of terrifying question from a product standpoint, but let me see if I can explain how big a deal these little wedges can be. Let's talk trucks. Every set of trucks out there, whether for street skating, longboarding, or mountainboarding, has a critical angle to it. It's the angle between the plane of the base plate and the pivot axis of the hanger. There's a little bit of geometry involved, but the important thing you need to know is that angle determines how much you have to lean in order to get the trucks to turn. In mountainboarding, we generally have two truck angles, 12-ish degrees for our skate-style trucks and 0 degrees for, well, everything else. Our trucks get their functional angle from the nose and tail of the board. A steeper truck angle gets you more turn for your lean, while a shallower truck angle gets you less. So here's where the wedges come in. By using these wedged risers, you can modify the angle of your trucks and therefore change the way your board turns. People have been doing this in the longboard world for years, and I'm stoked to bring that tech to mountainboarding. But this has all been pretty theoretical so far, so let's take a look at some real-world examples. Say you've got a setup, and you like how the trucks feel, but you want them to be a little bit more playful, a little bit more turny. Well, get yourself some of these 3-degree wedges and wedge up the angle of the trucks. This will make it so you have to lean less to get more turn out of your setup, and you get to keep the feel of your trucks that you already have and love. You can do this in the reverse as well. If you've got a setup that feels a little too sensitive, maybe a little too twitchy, you can wedge down to get more stability. You can also use it to modify the nose and tail angle. Say you've got a deck that you like that has a 30-degree nose and tail, but you want it to be 35. Instead of buying a whole new deck, you can just get a set of 5-degree risers and wedge up to that new truck angle that you want. And again, the reverse is true as well. But that's just scratching the surface of what you can do with wedges, and here's where, at least for me, it starts to get really exciting. What happens if you wedge up to increase the angle on your front truck and wedge down to decrease the angle on your back truck? Well, you get a setup where the front of the board turns more than the back. This gives the board a more surfy feeling, and having a lower truck angle in the back really helps with stability. Heads up though, just don't wedge down in the front and wedge up in the back. That doesn't get you a good setup, that gets you speed wobbles. Longboard world has known this for a long time, but speed wobbles come from two places. They come from the rider, and they come from your back truck. So don't do it. But otherwise, you can play with different angle combinations and get a ton of different rides from some very simple hardware. And that's the premise. Now, in addition to tightening and loosening your trucks, or swapping out bushings or shock blocks, we can also use wedges to further experiment with our ride, get it dialed in, and get that much closer to our perfect setup. So let's take a look at the wedges themselves. To start, I'll be offering wedges for Matrix 1, Matrix 2, and skate-style trucks. They're going to be available in 3, 5, and 7-degree wedges. And every wedge design is reversible, so you can use it to wedge either up or down. did a ton of R&D on these bad boys, so let me walk you through some of the details. They're going to be 3D printed from TPU, which is a flexible material in the urethane family. Honestly, I've been riding some PLA risers, which for me have held up just fine, but here's why we're going with TPU. Thing one is PLA tends to deform in heat, and I'm worried that in warmer climates, if the board's like hanging out in someone's trunk, if it's a hot day, that the risers might sag and they'll end up being useless. TPU has a higher melting temperature and a higher glass transition temperature, so we should be great on that front. The other reason is I did some informal material testing and, well, I think we can do a lot better than that. Honestly, the wedges are gonna mostly be under compression forces, so I'm not that worried about them having impact resistance. I don't think it's gonna be a huge issue, but one of the benefits of TPU is that because it's flexible, it's one of the most resilient principal materials out there. These things are never gonna break. And I was talking with Devin Garland, this guy right here. Man who has sat at the top of the podium for the last 2 Coloradicals. Coloradical 4 is coming up. Check it out. Also, that's the first ever backflip on a Good Roads deck. That is pretty sweet, right? He's the owner of the other Good Roads prototype deck. He won it at Coloradical last year. And when I was talking to him, he mentioned that having a slightly softer material to give the deck some dampening might be a good thing to do with the wedges. So again, with TPU, we've got that covered. The next aspect of the design I want to share with you guys is some of my earlier prototypes were heavy. So I did a bunch of experimentation with weight-saving methods, and I arrived at the designs you see here, which strike a balance between having the least amount of material needed, but also properly supporting the base plate of the truck in both orientations. And just one more tiny design detail. It's a little bit easier to see in a prototype, so that's why the shot is yellow. I included these little extensions on the skate-style risers to help distribute the torsional forces laterally into the deck. It should help out a little bit, and I mean, it also just looks really cool. Now, the wedges do require longer mounting hardware than what's standard. You can pick up what you need at a hardware store, but I'm also adding some pre-packaged sets to the shop. The hardware is all M5, which works with standard mounting holes, and it's also compatible with the pre-threaded MBS trucks. The bolts are a zinc-plated alloy steel that's almost twice as strong as stainless. I figured this way you can get everything you need in one place, and we should even be coming in at a lower price than what you get at a home goods store. So there we go, the slice wedges, the Long Boys XL Mountainboard hardware, and a brand new way to modify and dial in your Mountainboard setups. Available now in the shop at goodroadscollective.com. And this is the first Good Roads part. I'm excited, I'm nervous. I hope you all think this is cool. I think this is a good place for me as a manufacturer to start cutting my teeth on making actual board components. And of course, there will be more to come. Oh, and if you want wedges for a different truck geometry, here's the deal. Slap that boy on a scanner and send me a scan of the base plate at chris@goodroadscollective.com. The truck mounting holes are standardized, so I can work backwards from there to develop a profile. I have been working at these things for so long, and I'm so excited to get them out, and it's such a relief to get them out. So I hope you dig it, and thanks again so much for the 15K subscriber mark. It's really kind of cool that we hit that and hit my first part release in the same week. It wasn't planned that way, but there's something special about that. Huge thanks as always to my supporters on Patreon. You are the wedged risers that give this channel the perfect truck angle. Like, subscribe, do all the things, and as always, I love having you along for the ride, so until next time, I'll see you soon. Thank you so much. Ow. I'm out of practice. Now, in addition to tightening and loosening your trucks, or swapping out bushings, or what the heck are those things called? Shock blocks. GoodRoadsCollective.com, 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 GoodRoadsCollective.com. 4? Are we gonna do 4? I'm not so sure about that. We'll see.